All right, here's some big update coming in. Mamta Banerjee now hits out at BJP over the Agneepath scheme. Mamta Banerjee says, and I quote, BJP creating a cadre through Agneepath. This is yet another opposition leader who's now jumped in, condemning the Agneepath scheme at this point. The BJP creating a cadre through Agneepath. This is what Mamta Banerjee says. Remember, you're seeing a bunch of the opposition leaders who are raising fears on the intention of this Agneepath scheme being rolled out. Many of them accusing the government of trying to use the Agneepath scheme to create a cadre which would be loyal to the BJP, or rather, in a more bizarre statement, you had H.D. Kumaraswamy, Karnataka's former chief minister, who said that this was an attempt by the RSS to come out with their own RSS army, and the RSS itself will be recruiting for the Agneepath scheme. These are statements that responsible opposition leaders are making at this point, including Mamta Banerjee, who now says that the Agneepath scheme is an attempt by the BJP to create a cadre at this point. Remember, you had the three services of the Indian military who came out just yesterday and in detail explained the progressive approach that the government has taken through this Agneepath scheme. It is a short-term recruitment scheme into the Indian Army, but their intent is to ensure a younger cadre, a stronger base for them to be inducted in the Army at this point. Will also help many of those who want to serve the nation and also add to patriotism to a larger youth audience. Well, many explanations that the Tri-Services gave just yesterday in a press conference hasn't really gone down well with the aspirants, army aspirants, who still continue to protest vehemently. The opposition leaders, of course, are adding to this at this point. Many of them are jumping in, like Mamta Banerjee at this point also, who says that BJP is coming up with its own cadre. The Agneepath scheme is an attempt by the BJP to create its own cadre. This is what Mamta Banerjee has said. While you had Kumaraswamy also just spoke this morning about how the RSS allegedly is trying to involve itself in this whole Agneepath scheme in an attempt to create a full RSS cadre. The RSS itself will recruit for this Agneepath scheme. They will be the ones selecting and in fact deciding on who remains. These are the things that many of the opposition leaders have spoken out, including Mamta Banerjee, who now says that this is an attempt by the BJP to come up with its own cadre. The Agneepath scheme has gained heat. In fact, the scheme, right after it was rolled out, saw large-scale protests by army aspirants who indulged in violence so brutal. Many of the trains that were burned down, the railways itself, 500 trains that were cancelled. Indrajit joining us from Kolkata, in fact, to give us an understanding into what exactly Mamta Banerjee has said. Indrajit, over to you. What has Mamta said when what does she really mean when she says BJP is creating a cadre through the Agneepath scheme?
Well, basically, Mamta Banerjee was speaking in the West Bengal Assembly today, and she criticized the entire, effort by the central government as far as Agneepath scheme is concerned, because she said that this is, this is not an army job. And she questioned what will these young men who are recruited as part of Agneepath scheme, what will they do once their 4-year tenure with the army is over? She said that, it's not an army training, it's arms training. So when they come out, these youth will be unemployed once again. However, they will have the arms training. So she said that, it's going to be a worrisome situation. And she said that the BJP government has not been able to tackle the entire unemployment situation. And rather than focusing on how to tackle unemployment, they're trying to create confusion by creating a scheme like Agneepath, which has led to such widespread protests across the country. She also said that BJP is trying to create their own cadres, own vote bank through this Agneepath scheme, which will only assure youngsters a job for just 4 years. So clearly, Mamta Banerjee coming out hard against the central government right now, saying this is not an army job, and all these youngsters who enlist themselves for this project will once again be jobless once their 4-year tenure is over.
All right, at this point, Indrajit, we know that even West Bengal is seeing large protests from many of those army aspirants. Has there been any reaction after hearing the army services yesterday? Do you see that there is a difference in the protest that happened 3 days ago to what we see yesterday and today, post the clarification that the army has given, or do they still refuse to believe any of those points made by the tri-services?
Well, Nabila, we've seen, sporadic protests in West Bengal, not the kinds that we have been seeing in adjacent Bihar. However, there has been protests conducted even today as well in North 24 Pargana district. Even though the entire Bharat Bandh that has been called by various organizations across the country, that has had a very lukewarm response in West Bengal, and normal life is functioning absolutely fine today. So there has been protest. So I don't think that the assurances that are coming from the army yesterday at the press conference has had anything to do with the protesters. They are on the street to protest. However, West Bengal has seen much lesser protest than what we are seeing in adjoining Bihar.
All right. Indrajit, what we see here is that large-scale protests have erupted in the country. Bharat Bandh was called for. Do you see similar reactions, or have they really responded to these calls from these splinter groups on social media calling for a Bharat Bandh, a nationwide agitation that they've launched, but a Bharat Bandh, did it receive the needed response in West Bengal?
Well, as I said, Nabila, a very, very lukewarm response. In fact, normal life has not been affected due to this Bandh call absolutely today. In fact, the state government has asked all the authorities to remain on full vigil so that normal life is not affected. In fact, early in the morning, we saw the situation in control on the busy Howrah bridge that connects Howrah and Kolkata. Because a few days back, last week, we saw agitators blocking the Howrah bridge, blocking the traffic for some time in the morning. We have also seen train blockades being reported from North 24 Pargana district. However, nothing of that sort has happened today. There was a small protest that was brought out in North 24 Pargana. However, commuters have been moving in normally, and vehicular movement have been absolutely normal.
All right. Indrajit, so as per your observation, lukewarm response when it comes to protests in West Bengal. Rather, the Bharat Bandh hasn't received that kind of traction as it expected to in West Bengal, but several other states still continue to agitate and protest, with Mamta Banerjee, Kumaraswamy making these comments, saying that this is an attempt by the government to erect a whole new cadre loyal to the BJP and the RSS. These are comments coming in from the opposition leaders. Really, at this point, make no sense.